So you should have the charcoal pencil. There is vine charcoal, and this has charcoal like with air in it, so you're going to get light lines, so thin or thick. And these erase easily. This is what we're going to start with. Then you need compressed charcoal, and compressed charcoal gives you really nice, rich value. And then you want your tortillon, which is your blending stick. There's a fine point and then a wide point on the back. You don't want to unravel your tortillons. They don't sharpen at all. It's just a blending tool. And then you need 2 erasers, a hard edge eraser, and then you need the gummy eraser. It's just like bubble gum. But you want to be really careful not to throw these away or lose them because they're really hard to get. And then these are really delicate. This is basically like the compressed charcoal, but it comes in a pencil form. And I do have sharpeners up there in the orange container. So when you do sharpen them, be really gentle with it. Don't like rest your hand. A lot of people do that. They rest their hand and it snaps. You got to hold it, kind of even it out with the blade, and then turn it so that the wood hits the blade. The blade will do the work for you, and you just gently twist. And that's going to give you a nice fine tip. Okay? There's also pencil top erasers if you want to make smoothing lines. And I have these chamois. These are just old t-shirts. And this is just helpful because you can use it to smooth your darker areas. The hard edge eraser is going to give you nice crisp edges if you want to get a sharp highlight. The gummy erasers, you can slowly take the value away, and you can also slowly move it in circles to get really nice subtle gradations and erasing marks. You can also roll it into a fine point, so if you wanted to get like lines or highlights for hair, but you could also use your pencil eraser that way. Sometimes these get lots of the dust on it, the charcoal on it, so you might have to erase it on the paper to help clean the top. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I was going to show, I've done an example for every class, and unfortunately they didn't all say before, but I can show you a couple of them. And the first one I did was of dirt, and I still wanted to do a little bit more work on it. So we got dirt started, and then I did Tavia, so he took that with him. And then during first hour, Jesus. And during my other hour, Abby, which I'm still working on. Okay? And so today, to help you get started, I will do a demo of Ty. And if you didn't get the drawing paper is also up there for you. You need paper to draw on. And that's right here. I don't think you saw that something. Paper to draw on. Okay. So you want to get your picture and your paper next to each other on the table. And you want to make sure you have your table mat down to protect the table from the charcoal. It just helps with cleanup. And if you have your folder from drawing 1, you should have your notes. That will help you if you forget measurements, but I'm going to review those measurements with you to help because I know that it's hard to remember everything. So to get started, we want to think about the basic shape, the size of we're going to make the basic shape. So her face is an oval. So you're going to take your vine charcoal, the thin one, you get your vine charcoal, not the pencil, but did you get this one, Spencer? The vine charcoal? Yeah. No, that's compressed charcoal. You need a thin one. It's up there on the side. So this is easily erasable. So you're just going to take your charcoal, remember the top of her head, and you're just going to go straight across to the paper and put a little mark where the top of the head is going to be. If you haven't done that, go ahead and do that. And then on the bottom, you're going to do the same thing. We're just going to run the charcoal across, make a little notch where the bottom of the head will be. So that way we know that we had the size right. So I laid the paper side by side, took my charcoal, vine charcoal, and I just put it up here, and then I dragged it across and put a little notch where the top of the head's going to be. Then I did the same thing with the chin. Put it where the bottom of the head's going to be. But I'm not sure how big the head is going to be, how wide, the distance. I'm not measuring her hair, but I'm measuring, if you notice, from cheek to cheek. I can do the same thing. So now I know. I put a notch on the left, notch on the right. So now I know I can put an oval down, and this is going to be the size of my model's face. Okay? So I put a notch on top, a notch on bottom. I measured the distance from cheek to cheek, and then I drew an oval. Her braids that come out will make it a little bit larger, but I'm just focusing on her face right now. I could even incorporate her neck. And this is the top of the head, so I'm think about if I wanted to put, I'm going to kind of outline where her braid is. Every model should be different, but I'm just kind of outlining where her braids are. Remember, this formula that I taught you works for every person, male, female, age. It should all line up. So I got everything kind of outlined where I want it to be. And then we're going to do the same thing. If you remember last semester, we always divided the face in half, vertically and horizontally. So remember when we went across, that was the eye line. And if we have it still lined up where we were going across, we can also use our charcoal to line up where the eyes are. And her eye is here, the bottom of her nose, mouth. She's smiling, so the dimensions are a little skewed. So see how I put lines where I'm just lining up wherever all the features are. And I can take the little trick, you can take your vine charcoal, and remember we can easily divide the face in half. So I just lightly put it on its side, drag it down. It's going to give me a nice line. And look, it lines up. Remember her eye line? Halfway down the middle of the face, halfway to, which is also equal to halfway from the eye line to the chin. So all the measurements line up, just like we practiced. And now we're trying to figure out the eye width. We can measure from the distance from the sides, but remember, we talked about the space between the eyes equal the distance of the eye, left of the eye to the right of the pupil. So I can kind of measure with my charcoal. And this is going to be the same for her eye. So now I know her eyes are going to be here. Go ahead with your vine charcoal. You're working along with me. And then remember, the inside of the eye lines up with the outsides of the nose. She's smiling, so it opens it up a little bit more. But the nose is going to fall right on the inside of the eyes. And then the corners of the mouth line up with the eyes. And because she's smiling, notice the corners of her mouth go almost all the way to the outside of the eye. So now I know exactly where her smile will be. And then once I get everything outlined, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to start being more confident with my marks because I feel always double check and make sure the measurements are right. And then you're going to start to go in and you can start outlining just like a contour outline. Of all the shapes that you see on the face. And I want to do another time lapse also. And I'm just going to go slow. Remember, you can erase, and if you use the Vine charcoal, you can make corrections. And the goal is to push the value. You're trying to copy the value you see in the photo. So another trick that's going to be helpful, I know, Cora, because you're a little further ahead, you can take your phone and actually take a picture of your picture side by side with your drawing and see if the value lines up, and it'll help show you where you might need to make value darker. Or lighter in other places. She has a nose ring on. So I want to draw her, focus on the features first, and then I do details like the jewelry and stuff at the end. So I'm just doing a basic outline of the features, including like where her cheeks, where she's smiling, any major details that I'm noticing. You could even outline, like you see on her cheeks, I could even outline where I see highlights and shadow. And that's all going to be helpful information to me as you're drawing with that. There's a huge highlight on her forehead. So I just kind of made a mark where that's going to be. And you can pay attention to the shape of the side of the face. It's not just one, we made just a general oval shape. But if you notice that your cheeks subtly go in and out, especially if you're smiling. You can see it starting to get her face more outlined. And I'm just doing the basic shapes that I see. Including all the highlights and shadow. And with the mouth, shadow under that. Outlining the shape of the lips. the lower lip. Getting those teeth locked in. Remember how we practiced last semester? Focusing on, with teeth, you got to be really careful not to make them too prominent, because they're going to be inside the mouth. And making her chin a little bit wider. Let's go. And then I got her neck, and I got her braids. You always just see, you're going to do like to illustrate the texture, and then I only see the side, then as the braid is kind of turning, I'm making like little heart shapes. That's how you do braids. They're kind of woven into each other. So that's how you get a braid, okay? And we'll just do, I'm going to show you a trick how to get that value real quick with braids, if you do have somebody with braids. Her hairline is 1/5 down the top of the head. And then she's got more braids that come down onto her neck. And I can do those later too. I don't have to outline them all right now. You're just outlining all the shapes that you see. Remember, everything can be changed. And all those, that's going to be dark. So once I get the outline done, now I can, and I'm happy with the outline, I'm going to double check and make sure all of the measurements are correct, if I need to make any adjustments. And now I'm going to start to come in and shade it in. And so I'm going to use the same Vine charcoal, and I'm going to start to shade in wherever there is shadow on her face. So we know in reality that nobody's face is this dark in value, but we're translating the picture in value. So light to dark, from white to black. So I have to build up and you can use your tortillon or your finger to smooth it out, to see how that levels it out. We're matching the value. You don't want to use your finger. Oops. You use the tortillon. And if you get too much on there, no big deal. You just take your eraser and lightly rub it, and it pulls it away. So the value actually builds really fast. Underneath the eye, there's shadow. Use this to help blend and soften it. And I'm going to use my eraser to also pull highlights. So remember, it gets lighter. Right now I'm just trying to establish wherever I see those shadows. Lips are darker always, usually on top. Sometimes depending on which way you're being viewed, it could be on the bottom as well. That was too dark on the nose, so I'm pulling that up. But usually the cheeks, especially if you're smiling, are going to be a little bit darker. And always right underneath your lip, there's always a shadow underneath that lip. And that's what makes your lower lip come forward. Underneath your chin is always darker. And that's going to make your face move forward as well. Same thing on that side. And I just keep tweaking it. Keep tweaking, always keep tweaking it. Eyebrows tend to be a little bit lighter, and then they disappear on the outside the temple. So see, I put that, add the value, and then I use my tortillon to come smooth those lines, so it looks more realistic. So that. Also, the inside of your eye is always a little bit lighter or darker. It's not like the dark highlights are actually going to be, extreme highlights are usually in the pupil. And once you get that value done, you can take your pencil or the compressed charcoal and you can start putting in some of those details. She's got the highlight in her eye, so I'm going to remove that highlight. Sorry. Huh? I'm using a tortillon. You can erase anything if you make it too dark. Just erase it. And I just use the Divine charcoal to help build up any areas. You can notice in her upper eyelid is mainly in highlight, but then there's some areas that have those highlights. I'm just coming back in and building that in. Top of her eyebrow has a pretty bright highlight there. On top. And on her eyebrow is pretty light, but she has some darker features there. I can blend those in. Make it look realistic. Anytime it gets too dark, I just take my eraser and I can tone it down a little bit. Alright, so I just keep going, keep moving. You can move around or you can focus on one area at a time. And the shadow underneath the nose, underneath the eye, is really important too. A lot of people forget that shadow. And just keep moving back and forth, back and forth. Brooke, you feeling alright? You feeling okay? So that's what we're doing, is the self-portrait, or the portrait of your classmate. And then the goal, but we're going to move on to the first assignment soon, so you guys had it today. It's supposed to be the last day for this. So we can move on to the next assignment. So make sure you guys have all the tools that are up there for you. And go ahead and get started. And remember just to, you can use your eraser if you need to make any corrections. Remember to step back constantly and look at your piece and make sure that you have the right measurements. I'm also here if you need feedback, if you want me to look at it and give you any suggestions, or you can ask the person sitting next to you to look at it and make sure you got all the measurements right. And we can use the gummy eraser. That'll help you erase soft highlights if you need them. Constantly working back and forth. And you should have all your notes in their folder from first semester. If you need to look, and I also posted it for you on Classroom, on Canvas, underneath the student demos. So we just got to start working and just try. Charcoal is a lot easier than pencil. You get values faster, so it shouldn't take you longer than 2 days. With a small composition like this. So it's not a large composition. Alright, so you got the eyes. I'm going to start focusing on her nose. And there's a shadow underneath that nostril. I'm just coming back in. Already established the medium tones. Now I'm coming back in and putting in the darker area. Shadow. It gets lighter. And got the crease, her smile. Her nose ring. After I get that lined in, then I come back with my tortillon. And I just kind of smooth those edges out. And the gummy erasers, you can if you notice, like I kind of rolled it up into a little ball or point, and that will help me get like little details if I need to. If you need sharp edges, use your eraser top. Now I'm coming back and pulling those highlights from the nose. I'm putting a little bit of detail in that nose ring so it looks more realistic, but it's not really dark. I'm going to smudge it. Use soft highlight for that shadow. And now I'll come in and start defining her mouth. The darkest part is the corners. And I'm going to be really careful too with teeth. There's only a little bit of shadow on the bottom. It's really subtle. The biggest shadow is actually on the bottom of the lower lip. There. And then up on top. She's got some shadow on that corner of the lip. building that up, because if you see that her upper lip is darker than her skin, and usually your upper lips are always darker, even if you don't have lipstick on. And last semester, if you don't remember, I talked about, or if you didn't, if you had made before that, your teeth are always a little bit darker because they are inside your mouth. So I always put that shadow in and I pull the highlights out so it looks more realistic. And under her chin, right there, that's the darkest shadow. So I'm building that up. And it gets lighter. So once you put that heavy shadow too, see how that makes that her face pop forward more, because now it's in highlight and it's not the same value. And now I can come back with my eraser and I'm just going to start pulling the highlight. So notice how with the lip I'm just going to tap it. So that gently pulls that highlight up. Shadow underneath the nose a little bit darker there. Pulling the highlight. She's got a huge highlight on the cheek. Shadow, and then it gets lighter. And then the teeth, I'm just going to pull those highlights. I can see her braces. I'm going to put a little bit of That in. So I feel okay about that. And then for the hair, easy way to get box braids. Remember, hair is going to be darker. It's also dyed. I'm just going to put the value in. The compressed charcoal helps you get that really nice value. I can come back in and erase those highlights. But with hair, doesn't matter what color hair you have, I always recommend putting the compressed charcoal first, because then you're gonna use that. We're gonna rub that in with the t-shirt chamois, and then remove highlights. So I take my t-shirt chamois. See how that tones it down. And that helps build a nice tone for the overall. I can see it where everything I had outlined underneath, so I'm just coming back in and erasing. I'm going to start putting the box braids in. So I can put those and start putting the highlights in. I'm trying to match the value that I see in the picture. And then all I gotta do is come back in and put my shading back in, and I'm done. So see how that compressed charcoal really helps get that overall look, and I can come back and soften those edges up. still have 36 more minutes to get this done. Once you get it done, you're going to make sure your name's on the back. Spencer, you have a little bit more time since you were absent. Sure, we're going to try and set up.